Now I did do some video of when I changed this drum assembly over, and I can't seem to find the video anywhere. So that's the old one there, which had all the corrosion in it. The only thing I did do, besides just swapping this piece over, which is a few screws, the plugs, and swap it over, there's nothing at all involved in it, is I did swap the drum assembly over the upper drum, because this one looks like it's been replaced at some stage, possibly in 99 from the look of it. That's probably the date that it was made. So I thought we might as well have the good upper drum in here. The other one seemed to work as well, even though it had no colour and no hi-fi. I thought it's probably better to keep that one as a spare. So at least they got a good spare upper drum for this thing. But I thought that one looks like a newer one, so that's probably had a lot less use, one would assume, a lot less hours on it. So I thought I'd put that in. I could have just pulled it apart again and redone it. It wouldn't have taken that long, but I thought it's hardly worth the bother. I don't want to sort of fiddle with it again. So unfortunately I lost that little bit of video. It'll probably turn up somewhere one day when I don't want it anymore. So I have an image, no sound unless I turn the tracking so bad that it drops into mono sound.
Baby, I need some action tonight.
So it could be this muting. It's got the original heads. I put them back in there because they have been replaced. So they're a new set, just in case there was any issues. But new lower drum, image back on the screen besides no colour and no sound, no hi-fi sound. So it's possible that that motor is different and some of the pulses coming out are different or something. And where are we? Is this the stereo sound? That's further in, so that's from the heads inwards. It turns out that the preamp here actually has a chroma output on it, I think. Is this the part? This manual's really poor quality, which doesn't help. Yeah, one way around, so that's the other half of this, I think. Luminance, chrominance block diagram. Now I think from memory, somewhere out of here, this block, yeah, I can barely read this, it's not much good. We should have a chroma output, I think, separate, so it separates chroma and luminance. Something made a weird sound. In the video head amp, I think, which is, so that's the head amp. Video heads. And one of these, I think, is the chroma output. One possibly just luma, so it could be something to do with the head amp. It could be something to do with the new lower drum assembly. Most likely it'll be the motor itself is putting out the wrong signal to synchronise everything. But this, for all I know, this machine could have been pulled apart at some stage and someone's put all the dud parts in it out of other machines. So I'll have a bit of a poke around and see what waveforms here. We've got some guide waveforms for the oscilloscope, because that's about all we can really do is check on those, try and chase the signal through. So I'll start with the head amp output, I think, which is basically this board here, nice and easy to access, I think. Yeah, that's it. So we should have on this connector chroma, luma, I guess, and I can't remember if the hi-fi audio, I think, might be a completely separate part, or it just feeds through there and back out the other side. Oh, audio signals. Oh, here's our sound IF. So must have head, because it is an FM waveform, I think, so it's probably goes through some sort of intermediate frequency, yeah, pilot signal, bandpass filters. But I remember that I did have a quick poke around in here somewhere, and I think injecting a signal, as in hum off your finger, into some of this stuff made it actually put out an output of horrible noise and stuff. So maybe it's further back in this preamp section. Maybe both these faults are common to each other, who knows. But we'll start poking around and see what I can find. Okay, back on this video after changing the drum, and it had no colour and no hi-fi sound. But I found a couple of things. This does seem to be a signal coming out of, it turns out that the actual head amp, if I can find the right bit of paper again here. so it's not very good quality. I don't know if I did a better printout of this particular bit, but we've basically got the video heads come into this chip, which is all on this head preamp board here. I've currently got the shield off it just to have a look at a couple of things. Goes into an IC there, and it's actually split into basically luma and chroma. Chroma being colour or chrominance, and luma being luminance, or one's brightness, one's the colour content. So they're separate signals. They then go into this video colour pack, which is this board here. It's a upright board on the main board underneath it. It's got some colour delay lines and stuff. And even though they do give a oscillogram or whatever you call it here of what the signal should be, comes out of there, goes up, and there's another diagram here somewhere. I marked it on. That's right, pin 34 of an actual. There's a couple of little flexible circuit board type things mounted on that board. It goes in on pin 34 on 1. We don't quite get this nice diagram they show here, but we do get about 50 millivolts of a signal there. This one they show, if you look somewhere in the manual, probably tells you that you need to have a certain test tape playing with colour bars or some other particular signal, which I don't have. But I'm getting about 50 millivolts of some sort of waveform there, so I assume that's probably good. And on the same module, it then comes out, or is meant to come out of this pin 17, comes across to this other module on that board on pin 20. It's a chroma mix. This is just a block diagram. Goes through a bandpass filter there, 4.43 megahertz, which is our colour frequency here. Looking at the little waveform they show off the side of that, it's basically from 1 megahertz to about 5 megahertz bandpass filter. So I think something in that module is probably faulty on the chroma side, so I might even unsolder that and just have a quick look. It's quite hard to get any access to. You can get to some parts of the back of the board, and it's basically, I'm going to do this carefully, there's two little modules. There's one long thin one there. I think it's actually like 2 bits of circuit board folded over. There's another one down there, and on the other side of the board we have these big long like edge connectors with 2 little circuit board things soldered to them on each side. That's each side of that folded over piece. Not the easiest thing to get access to, but you can actually get access to the pins on that board. And we've got this other audio board waving around in the breeze. But basically we've got a strip of pins along here, and you can measure some of those. Basically what goes into each module anyway, so you can find the signal coming in from the head amp, which just goes up one of these pins through a track, I guess, and into one of those modules. And the other thing I found, I had a quick look at the audio as well, and we're just getting a muted audio signal, which I suspect may be something to do. So it means there's like an FM carrier signal, like on FM stereo with a FM tuner, radio tuner. I think these have a similar setup with like 2 channels of info and a pilot tone. And I think it's getting the pilot tone because when you mess the tracking around and it gets a bad picture, suddenly some sound comes through, or at least unmutes itself. So I think it's getting that through fine. And this is the plug here, separate plug from the preamp section. The other one comes through, I think it's this one here. Whole bunch of wires and power and stuff to the preamp. This is like separate, so that's all the video side of things, chroma, luma and whatever. And this plugged up under a little metal cover on this board. And I actually just pulled, I thought I'll take the cover off, I pulled the plug out, and you do get like a sort of hash sound coming out of it, so that would suggest a lot of this is in working order. And when I plugged it back in, I heard a little pip of audio come out, and I found that if you sort of hold it half plugged in, I'm not sure what's connecting and what's not, you can actually get audio out of it. But I forgot to check on the front to see whether it lit up like it was the hi-fi working, so I'll have a look at that as well. But I think that circuit's mostly working, but why it's muting, I don't know whether there's an adjustment issue. I don't think it's anything to do with this new drum, but who knows what's going on. Very rare you had any chroma or hi-fi issues with VCRs. But like I say, it's possible someone may have swapped boards in this or something. Sometimes you end up with one of these machines and it's written off because of the lower drum was faulty, and then someone's pinched boards out of it to fix another machine or something. You just never know with these things. Unfortunately, you get these odd machines around second-hand that had been used by people to pinch every useful part out of and put all the rest back together. I used to buy the odd one second-hand, think it was just a normal machine, and it turned out it would be something like that, a real dud. But hopefully we can get this thing sorted still. I think the owner still has another machine with some sort of damage, I think to the front boards or something, a Blaupunkt rebadged version. I think they did have slightly different front boards, but these boards are hopefully the same. Hopefully that chroma module's the same, so if worse comes to worse, maybe able to just swap that. Not sure what's going on with the hi-fi audio, that's a bit of a weird one. But we'll have a look at that and see what it's doing, because it's rather strange. I think that big light on the front panel should be our hi-fi light. Yeah, that's when they're happy that there's hi-fi there, this thing should light up. And I'm not sure whether we have the level meters running until then, but I don't think it really drops into analog audio, but I'm not sure what this tape's got on it. This is a commercial tape of La Bamba. But just coming out black and white with no audio. Ah, well, that's weird. We've got a hi-fi light and we've got audio with that unplugged. Well, that's not hi-fi, surely. Hi-fi light's still on, but the audio dropped out. I've never turned it on with the plug out before, so maybe that had something to do with it. Very weird. Yeah, that's what it was doing. And I did manage to get there. There it is. Very hard to get it in the right spot, but it does produce sound. I don't think this hi-fi light actually indicates anything other than it's switched to hi-fi mode by the look of it, because it's some machines that'll light up when it's actually decoding hi-fi. That's the audio select button there, which doesn't do anything. Well, we're not on tape, so let's try again. It's back now. Crazy. Yeah, audio select button does nothing. That's because I've left it unplugged again. That's crazy if you leave it unplugged, but I don't know if I've got hi-fi audio or saying normal. So it's not saying stereo. I reckon we should have a stereo light up. So that makes sense. It's basically reverting back to linear audio off the audio control head because there's no signal. I don't know why I can't get that hi-fi light off. Yeah, so normal audio. That should change when we fiddle around. The normal light's certainly dropping out. There we've got sound, but no light to say normal or otherwise. It's weird that doesn't just drop out to normal, because it should, but no hi-fi heads connected. So yeah, a bit of a weird one there, but looks like when it's in hi-fi mode, it's acting like it's getting the... It knows the hi-fi is there, it's getting the pilot tone or whatever. So it could be anything wrong there. Again, we've got some of these modules, and someone's been messing around with some links there. So I take it someone's unsoldered that and stuffed up there. They've soldered across. So it looks like someone's messed around with it and done something with the... I did see some track scrape near there. There's a bunch of track has been the green lacquer's been scraped off, which makes me suspect this board's had some work or possibly been found faulty and swapped over. I guess if a couple of pins have gone on that module, could there be more damage there? Oh, they're actually, oh, I see what it is. It's actually an aluminium substrate by the look of it. Looks like these boards, yeah, they're, I think it's pieces of aluminium with a plastic circuit board stuck on top. Yeah, what a, not the greatest idea. The later Panasonic Kamex had thick film type things, which are a lot of trouble as well, which is like a ceramic substrate with sort of like a ceramic circuit board, really. Horrible things to work on. Well, they both got the same chip on them, so they'd be each channel, I would think. They're a stereo pair. So in theory, a failure node should only cause one thing to drop out. I should have a look at what some of these adjustments are. Maybe there's a slight issue there somewhere. But I think we'll give that a miss for now. And there is a signal comes off this test point there. That's the chroma output. At least this thing's mechanically seeming to behave itself today. You know, there's a few bits of colour flicking up on the screen, on the TV screen that is. I'll get that to stay there. But that's our kind of signal. So I'd say the fact there is a signal there and we're just running off a random tape, which is going to have all sorts of changing video and stuff. It's no wonder the signal looks a bit like that. It's not going to be that nice little thing they show in the manual, which would be off a still image of some sort. And I haven't even got any video test patterns or anything anymore. Wouldn't be hard to make one off a pattern generator, I guess, might help. But the fact there's something there is a good sign. And from there, you can find it goes across to whatever pin I set on that board, which is this row of pins here. And I think it was these two ones, the top one, 34. It actually comes into that, no, it's not on the, oh, there it is, 31. Pin 34 through a bandpass filter back to 31, which I think it was close to one of the ends. 5, 8, 24, 30, so 31 is the fourth from the end here, 34 pins. So we can at least grab an earth on that little copper thing. Have a look. It's not as big, but it's gone through a bandpass filter, but there is still a signal there. And I think I did manage to find it on that pin 34. I think I did find. And then it doesn't come back out on this pin 17. Now one of the, was it no, it's the other chip's got some sort of colour killer or something that, I forget where it came from now, but there is a signal in that can potentially kill the chroma off. But if it's not getting to even that far, I don't think we need to worry about that being the issue. So there's the images. I guess, oh, that's record mode, that's play mode on that pin, because that's got an internal switch between record and playback. So you'll find these circuits come in. Which one was it? Pin 34 PB, it was that one. Oh yeah, where that oscillogram thing is. So it comes in, that switches between playback and record. So in playback it should go through this ACC, don't know if that's automatic color control or something. That's a record switch, so we don't need to worry about that. It looks like it actually comes back out on this other pin, so that might be something to check. Pin 22 is that, maybe? Very hard to read this circuit. And we've got a balanced demodulator, which has another sort of signal here coming into that as well. Playback on. So it looks like we've got another delay line, buffer, back through an amp, back up around, it's going all over the place. So that goes back into the record section, I think. So again, we don't need to worry about it, but it does find its way down. Record out amp. So that's in record mode. If this switch when it's in playback, we've got playback out amplifier. So that takes this other path. So it does have to go back up, I think. Where was it now? Comes in there, playback into that. Playback amp. Playback, which comes back up to here. And what did that line go to? There's stuff all over the place. Oh, this might be external video in, I think. In what they call E to E mode. Electronic to electronic mode, which I think was somewhere in this chip. There was some stuff on that. So in other words, tuner or video input. Record, playback. Yeah, that's the path out there. So in record mode it goes possibly back the other way. Okay, now I've got it all in red. Turns out this path goes all over the place. Comes in on 34, out on 18 to a delay line, back in on 24, through an amp, back on 31, through an FL, I'm not sure quite what that is, but something similar to a delay line. Some sort of filter or something, another 4.43 megahertz bandpass filter, so rather than a delay it's a filter. Back down here, through some more stuff, and then finally out at pin 17, so it's quite a convoluted path. And that's on the little module part. IC801, IC301 over here. I think 801's the one we wanted, yeah. So it's this little bunch of edge connectors there. So I'm going to have to work on it on its side, I think. And it's very hard to get access to with this other board. Can we actually get rid of this board possibly or something? At least if I pull that head we've got more. Yeah, that's actually better. Now I can access the edge connector a lot better. Okay, so I've got this NV870 up and running. I did a separate video on that one, putting new belt kit and stuff in it. All seems to be running fine. So what I was thinking is I don't 100% trust what I found with the NV870, which is basically all that colour signal. I was messing around a bit with the delay line, but it all seems to run through this main section or first section, and then it goes into this pin 20 on the other little IC, which is a kind of little module unit, that little aluminium folded over circuit boardy kind of thing with plastic tracks on it. And all it really does in here, it turns out this thing's basically set up like a S-video machine. So you've got chroma and you've got your luma, which comes in here somewhere, completely separate right up until this last little chroma mixer thing in this chip is where this, that's the luma coming in here somewhere. I think it might even come right through where that red one is. I think that's the record signal, play signal comes in here somewhere. Through a noise canceller, so you've got luma, chroma into this chip. And then I think some final switching, that is to mute it switches the video output to ground. You've got VV, video playback, basically EE, which is a tuner, and both of them basically go straight to the AV output here, I think, through that red and grey line there for play and record. But that's the output pretty much of composite video. So if it's going up into here, then basically it should be right. I was going to double check the color crystal, which is around here somewhere. That's that 4.43. No, that's not it. Somewhere around here there is a 4.43 megahertz signal from a crystal. I thought I probably should check that, but I think if that's not working, we'd have more problems than what we got. Still possible there's some sort of switching or something. I don't think it's really synchronized to the motors or anything, but it does worry me a little bit that we could have something like that. That's the full block diagram, and I forget where it is. Is it the crystal? Don't think so, but there is a 4.43 megahertz signal somewhere here that goes off to other parts of the machine, possibly to synchronize something. But yeah, quite a complicated mess, and it's been a long time since I've looked at anything like this. And yeah, these machines are so old, they've got a lot more components in them. The newer ones, very rare to see any issues in these sections because it was all in a couple of chips at most, whereas these have circuit boards full of stuff. So I think what I'll do is probably where that chroma delay line is I'll take the signal feeding one and put it in the other one. I made 2 test tapes with colour bars on them, so we're getting the same signal. They still probably won't synchronize. There could be something out somewhere, but I would expect if I inject one machine into the other, and we can do it both directions, the drive to the chroma unit in the 870 can go into this one, into the decoder and stuff after that, and see if it actually is getting that far. And I can also take the output or the drive to this delay line out of this machine. I know this machine's all good, and feed it into that one, and if it's still black and white, then it sort of shows that it is in that circuit after the delay line, and we can always tap it off somewhere else as well and put that into there. And same with the other machine, we can probably, this would have a similar setup. Unfortunately I couldn't find a manual for this one anywhere, which makes it more difficult. But this probably has very similar modules and stuff anyway, so we might be able to hook right into that final module where it mixes the chroma and luma. Basically that, whatever I said, pin 20 or whatever, yeah, that thing, we probably got something similar. This may even use the same modules in this one, I'm not sure. Very similar colour board in it, but definitely not the same. It's got less pins connected to the main board and stuff. And if it is in that section, then yeah, I'll probably have to get the guy to see if it's got the same board in the Blaupunkt he's got and get him to send that to me. But I would like to prove 100% that this, there's still a little nagging thing in me that thinks it could be something to do with the drum motors different or something when we swap that over. And it'd be interesting to have a look anyway, because it would be good to actually have a look at some of these signals and see what some of them do and how they operate, because one day I would like to do a video on these machines, because they're quite fascinating the way they work, but very complicated as well, and probably quite difficult to really explain all the different bits and demonstrate it in a useful way. But it would be interesting to see if we can ever do that, because they're a highly complex piece of equipment really, and yeah, very interesting how they work. Even just the colour decoding in a normal television set is quite an amazing feat of engineering. So where do we have it? That's our module over there, I think. That's on pause mode, so a lot of sync issues as I thought, but even worse than I thought. That's unpaused. Can we advance it and do anything? Frame advance doesn't really help. That is miles out of sync. Seems to be a lot of rubbish it's picking up even before it gets going. Well, that doesn't help much at all. Let's swap them over the other way and see if that proves anything. Power off. Power off. Let's try and inject it into here. So all I can do is swap that red lead on each machine into the delay line at this end, and out of the circuit board on this end. So that's the 870 output with the 280 running its chroma into it, and that to me suggests that the output of that thing, the bit I thought was faulty, is fine. Because we're injecting that into the chroma delay line. So I don't know if I can get the output of the head amp, because there's a signal there, but it doesn't look quite the same on this other machine. That's about what I would have expected, something like that, reasonably stable, without, you know, completely obliterating the picture, but it's going to be losing sync. It's going to be drifting around since the two servo systems are not connected. So that makes it look like this NV870 is working from that delay line onwards. I wonder if I can find the head preamp output on each machine, because this could be something to do with that new drum we put in it. It's not impossible. You wouldn't think so, but it is certainly possible. That's why I wanted two machines running the same signal, because at least you got a hope of it syncing at times. So when we put that one into the other machine, we get a whole lot of rubbish out of it, but no colour. So in a way we're getting, what are we getting then? We're getting some sort of luminance type effect, some sort of signal going into the chroma, but it's not chroma. It's not colour by the look of it, but it's affecting the thing, so that's interesting. So basically any time messing at this end of the circuit or middle of the circuit here is a waste of time, I think. I really need to go back probably to the head preamps. At least that, you know, sort of proved the point. I would have thought there'd be enough signal there out of a good machine to somewhat sync up with it. Now I've got to find, well, it's all the pins in here somewhere. There's a big connector under this audio thing. But my next step will be to, yeah, get a clearer picture of that circuit, and then once I kind of know what signal I'm looking for here, maybe I can find it on the other machine, no problem, because that's got a completely different head switching setup, of course, or completely different preamp in this thing, which is this little module here. But it would probably feed into a similar spot in the chroma board. Obviously got a lot less connections because we don't have any hi-fi. Now I wonder if that's got the same chip in it is another thing. It's not impossible that the chip that does the colour and all the rest is identical, because it's kind of doing the same job, because it's just the video section, and the video is exactly the same in both machines technically. It's just tight, I think. It's coming, and then it will suddenly let go. What have we got in this thing? Ah, well that's handy, we don't have a chip in there. Or it's a surface mount on the other side. Wow, they've really gone to town on the shielding on this thing. Oh my god. None of these machines were so expensive back in the day. We have a 3310. Is that an AN? I don't think I have the full circuit of the other one. I guess I could maybe flip the board out of there. That doesn't have surface mount though, so that's going to be a problem. So I don't think we've got much hope. But the good thing is I can look up a data sheet on that chip probably, or if I can find out what it actually is. Is it an AN series? Let's have a look in here, because I haven't had a look inside this thing. I had no reason to, assuming it would all work the same. Ah, we've got an AN3310, so that's just a surface mount version of the same thing, I reckon. That's what I expected. So that's just a dip, through-hole dip IC. There's another IC in there somewhere. Oh no, that's just a connector. Oh, and a couple of, and some transistors. Oh yeah, it does look a bit like an IC, but it's not, no. Oh, well, that's got to be the easiest thing on earth then. In theory, we just need to hook from the particular pin on this chip, or test point, or whatever. Yeah, this has a test point, I think. Test point 1, I think, is our chroma. Has this got any test points or anything handy? Probably not. Geez, I bent that plug a bit trying to get it undone. Oh yeah, we've got a couple of test points there, maybe. All I've got to do is find out if they go to the same pin on this chip. Oh, this might not be too hard to do. I'll just go and find the information on which pin this the chroma comes out of, and which pin on that, and we should be able to go right back to the source here. And if I can inject a signal from that chip into that board and it works, we know we've got something in the either the preamp or the head unit, and we can go from there. Okay, so it looks like it's pin 15 on this IC, or should be on both ICs since they're the same ones. Should be where the chroma signal comes out and feeds all the rest of the unit. At test point 1, because I think everything on here is 5000. So that's pin 1, 12, 13, 14, 15. Should be the track that goes up, yep, straight to that test point 1 there, which I think is actually technically test point 5001. So if we can inject a signal into there somewhere, as well as take it from this machine to the other one, then we might have some idea what's going on. Now, where is it on this one? That's pin 1, 12, 13, 14, 15, and we're going to have trouble finding this one because it's miniature. Sometimes it's easier just to, if you know where the pin is, just beep it out. 12, 13, 14, 15, definitely that one, which I think, what was it on the end of? That thing. Let's go to the pin. Come on. There it is, second pin from the end. Is that connected to that transistor? Probably not. Just a single-sided board. Second pin from the non-blue wire end. It could almost be connected to the transistor. It's probably this little track coming back. Oh, it actually goes under the chip. I think it's this track comes out. In between the pins, the C520 at the top corner of this chip. Highest numbered pin. That's probably it. Which makes it a little difficult to disconnect, but I guess we can just do it on the socket there. Possibly, the other option is even to remove the pin from the connector. What do we want to do? We want to put that video into this video, I think, first. 13, 14, it's that pin. Looks like it's already been soldered once. I'm not sure someone's been in here before. I think we're disconnected. Let's double check. Test point 1. Oh, we're not bloody disconnected, are we? Son of a gun. Try again. Now we're disconnected. So if we connect to test point whatever, I think I'm still on the TV on this machine, hopefully. Where's ground? That line's ground, that line, I think that's it there. Yep, so we've got ground and the test point. We want something similar here. I wonder if it isn't just easier to flick that bit of plastic up. Just lift that little bit of plastic behind the metal there, we should be able to slide that pin out. So that's disconnected. We want to connect to this module. Might have to solder to the chassis there for the earth. Second pin up. So the head amp signal on this machine will be going into the rest of the chroma circuitry in the other. I've got to plug that back in, otherwise I won't have any power or anything. And won't be of any use at all. Hit play on that machine. Turn the other machine on. Come on, wakey wakey. Hit play. Oh, what have I unplugged here? Anything? No. So no, we've got no chroma at all. Nothing much to speak of. Which could mean the chroma issue is elsewhere. I guess what I'm going to do is swap these back the other way. Oh, we've got some flickering of chromatic stuff. Ooh. Which would suggest that this head preamp's working, and it's between that and that delay line. At least that gets rid of my fears that this was something to do with the drum, I think. So this replacement drum must be fine, I think, because we're getting chroma. As much as it doesn't like to lock in very often, I don't have tracking or anything else more to adjust that. Is that a tracking issue, or just the fact some chroma is flicking up would suggest we've got a good signal coming out of this heads and preamp. The annoying thing is I'm not sure what the signal should look like and where it changes at. So this is the output of the video amp, or the chroma in this one. So I've got about five units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, somewhere around there. So that's what it looks like on that one. Let's start the other one up. I think it's something similar to that. Is it as nice a waveform though? Pretty similar, yep, same sort of amplitude. So it looks like both head preamps are putting out the same signal. Maybe you can actually see it this time that it's so cold the lens has been fogging up. But that's somewhere around what we probably should be looking at. What are we on here? High frequency rejection, so just to lock it in a bit. So that's our chroma signal with the colour bars. At least we've got some sort of signal, so at least I know what I'm looking at now with these tapes anyway. So really got to follow that great big circuit again of where that went through everything. So it looks like we've got the right signal coming in on 34. And then we've got to go through this whole process again, 18, 24, 31. This is pretty much what I did before. And without any real indication of where it fails at. Oh wait, we know it fails by... Oh, but it was gone at 18, is that right? So what did we find? The circuit after the delay line was fine. The rubbish coming out of the delay line is bad. So more likely it's just in this section here is faulty. Okay, so I've got this machine sort of pulled apart so I can access the colour board in it. And one of these should be, yeah, IC801. I don't know if it's exactly the same, but it's probably something similar. Pin 30, that one, should have a massive colour signal on it. Oh yeah, much bigger signal there. So it went through a bandpass filter and that's about all. So was it? It's even bigger signal than what was coming out of the head preamp. So it goes into 34, quite large, so that's interesting. What are we on? 50... .1, so it's 100 millivolts. We've got about 300 to 400 millivolts there. That's interesting because I don't think the other one was boosted up like that. That actually looks like, as you might expect after a bandpass filter, a cleaner sort of signal. Don't know about a larger signal because I would have thought, but I'm not sure that's only on a block diagram. I'm not sure what we got there, so maybe there's a buffer transistor and stuff. But that's 34, 28, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 22. Yeah, massive signal. 1, 20, 19, 18. And again, a massive signal. And that's an enormous signal coming out of 18. That goes into our delay line. Quite a bit lower. That's the weird thing, is it changes quite a bit between 18 and even lower out the output. So what do we... Oh, I think there's a bandpass filter or something in there maybe. So I think the block diagram shows it the other way around, delay line, bandpass filter. It might actually go the other way or something. I wish these pins had more markings on them. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 20. That's 18 there. But that's got a great big signal, so I'm not sure what that pin 22 even does. In that circuit it does show it connected to a possible C-cam module, which this machine shouldn't have. But yeah, completely different type of signal. The only other thing I could think of is maybe it's somehow stuck in record mode or something. You can never discount all these potential signals. I guess the other thing might be to find out if this chip is the same, but I really don't fancy trying to unsolder that. It's a highly risky operation in a way, and quite a bit of work. Might be better just to get the guy to see if it's got the same colour module. We might get that sent over. But yeah, that's the kind of signals I'd expect to see in one of these machines. The fact the other machine has signal going through it is a bit of a worry, because usually you just get a kind of open circuit, which, you know, a signal just disappears, which is simple to track down normally. But in the case of the other machine, there is a signal and something like the correct signal going right through it, which makes it extremely difficult in a sense, because without another machine to compare it to, you start wondering if you've got a good signal or a bad signal, or where it turns to a bad signal. Very hard to tell. Whereas like in this machine though, in comparison, you can see much stronger signals and stuff. So I might have a bit more of a look at that circuit around there. But it's looking much like this IC801 in the other machine is faulty. Well, today I'm getting back onto this National NV870. The owner has sent a board over, and also included was some of this genuine Western Australian dingo piss. Now, I must say, quite a nice beer that. This is another one done in the sort of older style. I've been getting into a bit of the Brainy brothers, who do basically old school recipes from the 1800s or early 1900s, their ancestors' breweries. There was a whole bunch of Irish that came out and were brewers, a whole family of them. I think like 8 brothers or something crazy like that. And they're actually really nice to drink again. Tastes more like the 70s or 80s beer rather than all this sort of American style craft beer. And this one's pretty good. I think it just says it's just a standard sort of lager. It's got the old, I think it's Pride of Ringwood hops in it. None of this Galaxy hops, sort of piney tasting stuff. These are proper old school, nice and malty beers. I actually prefer this sort of style beer. And they sort of got more bitter, I think, over the 90s and stuff. And they've changed the taste of a lot of the older ones. Have changed quite a bit, but these are going back to the old school sort of style. But yeah, I recommend this as a nice beer if you like that kind of thing. A bit sort of maybe a little on the sweeter side. And definitely not that overpowering craft brewery taste, which has gotten very boring very quickly because everyone makes the same thing. So yeah, nice drop, and thanks to Daniel, I think it was, for sending that. I've got through, I think, 3 out of 4 cans. And yeah, very nice. And by the way, I think the original Dingo Piss was actually Foster's Lager. That was just a bit of a joke term. Again, going back to the 80s or 90s. But as soon as I saw that dingo on there, that's the first time I think I've thought of that term in a long time. But I thought, oh, Dingo Piss. But no, she's quite a good drop, that one. So I have to say that WA drop's better than a lot of the stuff they make it in Tassie at the moment, unfortunately. But yeah, the Brainy Brothers, BREHNEY or something they are. Actually, I'll get one of their cans. Here are a couple of the Brainy Brother ones. That's actually got their name, BREHNEY. I mean, it cost me about $90 for a carton from Victoria. I don't know if they've got their postage down yet. But this was a nice idea. It's made by Burnley Brewing, I think, who actually did it for them. And there's a picture of some of the Brainy family. Most influential family in Australian brewing history. 4 Brainy Brothers breweries between 1891 and 1912. So that's the Victorian version. They made the Queensland Bitter was another nice one. I think they're probably the best too, this Sparkling Bitter and the Queensland Bitter. And they have redone some of the Tasmanian range. The Co-op Brewery, one of them was involved in that, but that only went for about 3 years, that brewery. It basically came online right in the Great Depression, and Cascade Brewery down in Hobart here owned all the pubs, virtually. This was a kind of attempt to compete against them. And yeah, basically went broke within sort of 3 years. I'm not sure if it even operated for a full 3 years. But it's nice to see the old labels, original labels that the brewery used. Don't quite like these as much as, yeah, this Sparkling Bitter and the Queensland Bitter seem to be the best two I've tried so far. But they make a stout and a bitter or something. I know it's the, what do they call it? A stock ale, I think, maybe. Was a weird one that the Tasmanian Co-op Brewery had. They also do a Northern, I think, United Brewery or something from Launceston or up around there somewhere. So something a bit different. And beer's a lot more interesting than fixing VCRs. Even though it's not what we're really here for. So we've got to basically unsolder this row of pins. And I don't think there's any other connectors. I forget which one of these 2 modules I think is faulty and the other one. But they, being aluminium substrate things, and with all these little edge connectors, they're a real pain to get off. So I think we'll just swap the whole board over. And fingers crossed that fixes it. We've got to undo this little standoff thing here, or little bracket. Which was always a good idea, for, especially in transportation and stuff, to have that to hold the board solid. We actually have to, oh, they've melted it a bit, I think. That doesn't make life easy. I'll just have to push that through with a screwdriver. Yeah, I think they've kind of bent it over and melted it. May even have to cut it a bit. Yeah, just almost got to break them off, I think. Doesn't really matter because it's got a screw to hold it anyway. But yeah, I'm not sure why. Maybe they did that on the production line so it didn't fall off or something. Someone probably had the job of fitting that and melting it in place, and someone else screwed it in or something. See if we can just prise it out carefully. There we go. And then it's just a matter of going along with the solder sucker. At least if we can get the electronics working on this thing, I can give it a bit of a test run. It's not playing perfectly mechanically at the moment, but should be good enough to run a few tapes through. I always like to test these things, especially when there's such an unknown condition, and just make sure there's no other intermittent heat related or anything electronic faults in them. And once we've got the electronics all working properly, we can get an overhaul kit and belt kit. I'm not sure if the belt kit comes in the overhaul kit, but either way we'll give everything a replacement, and hopefully this machine will be right for quite a few more years, because they were a very reliable machine. Probably the best era of VCRs ever made. And it's a shame they didn't just stop. Obviously they worked out how to put a lot less electronics in them, but they almost needed to keep the mechanical section at this stage. I guess they wanted to add more features and whatever, such as it is with the competition against other manufacturers, to always have the latest little features on your gadgets. But it's kind of a shame when they get things to a really good stage and then decide to completely change it for something that's not as good. But unfortunately that's the way it always went. I mean, in the 80s here, you're lucky for VCR mech lasted a couple of years really. I think this one went a bit longer. The sort of earlier ones were a bit more complicated and less reliable. These just about nailed it perfectly. But by the late 80s, they were going to the G mechanism, which is pretty plasticky and overly complicated. As long as people didn't abuse them, they were quite reliable, but inevitably something would get broken. So there's our colour module. Put that board away for safekeeping, since that's probably still a good board. And we'll do the same with this one. Oh, this isn't melted by the look of it. Is it going to come out then? Oh, beautiful. Just touch it and it falls out. That's more like it. So maybe that was a change on the production line or something, so at least we don't care about that other one that's... I broke one of the bits off, because we've got a perfectly good one there. And I did find out why they run the chroma separate to the luma. It's all part of the VHS system, the way it works. And it's so they can basically invert or phase shift part of the colour signal in order that different lines or frames or whatever have the almost the same information next to each other. So if you get bleed through from one line of video information to the other, it really doesn't matter, because the earlier video formats all had to have like gaps, like a line of information recorded by the head and then a gap, then the next line, so you didn't get sort of crosstalk. And VHS made it possible to make a much shorter tape, or longer tape if you like, for longer recording per length of tape, by doing this phase alteration, so that you could have the two lines recorded right next to each other without any real colour crosstalk or problems with the colour, as you would have got on a U-matic or something like that, which all used a gap. I might have marked that one as faulty. Just put that on that delay line, just so I can't mix them up. Now I guess while we've got this board out, good time to check all the solder joints on it. And probably should check a few capacitors while we're at it. Even though the caps have shown themselves to be good in this machine, I think I only found one that was a bit out. It's It's amazing how well these caps lasted in these things. They were pretty good quality. I think that's the main one. I'll just check a couple in that corner, but as long as these machines didn't run too hot, they were fine. Depended, of course, how much work they got, if they were in a cabinet, if they were next to a heater or something. That one measures a little high. A lot of variables. Some people, you know, had them right next to a wood heater, and it measures all right now. No, I think they are fine. Certainly not bad enough that we need to worry about a blanket change or anything silly. Let's try and get the end pins on and just push the board home. Yeah, I don't think that end's quite in place. Yeah, that one's pressed home. That one's now pressed home. Better check we haven't got any wires or anything down that end, I guess. No, that's definitely flush. All looking good. Means we're safe to reattach it. Just resolder those two end ones again because I've moved them a little bit. But often with this sort of fault, colour sections and stuff, it just wasn't economical to trace everything down on a component level. You'd often swap a board, or at least prove it was on a board before you chased it further. But I thought in this case, since you don't see too many of these faults, I might as well have a go at playing around and taking a bit more time, trying to prove what section it's in. But as a business proposition, you know, customers not going to pay you for spending hours trying to track them down. So you'd normally try and find another scrap machine or something, at least swap a board and see if that fixed it. And a lot of the time, that was it. It was cheaper to swap a board for someone than to actually fault find it, only to find out it was some module that may have cost $80, $90 or something, if you could still get it. So they weren't really a good proposition to do. It's so rare you saw the faults. It's not like you could trace a colour fault in a VCR and then fix another 20 of them and make your money back there, sort of thing, for the time you put into it, because it just didn't happen. Very rare to see an electronic fault in these things at all. Little metal bits catching there. This is a bit fiddly with these plastic posts. That's it. Get that home and see if it made any difference. Okay, so that's the image. We do have a bit of a tracking issue. Could be that slightly out, or could just be this tape. This tape was pretty poor condition, I think, but at least we have chroma again. So that's a vast improvement over what we had before. Well, that's great. Well, that's what the picture should have come up like in the first place, but of course it didn't. Often the case with old machines, you never know what you're going to get. Guess I should just do maybe a quick recording of some pattern generator. Usually takes a little while to settle down the colour and stuff. I guess we should maybe try a bit of program and get the set-top box going. There.
1800s, the local estate owners decided that they would like to reclaim the basin, and they sent for
Well, that's come up pretty good. That's as good as you can expect from VHS. It's a little blurrier than the original digital signal, of course. Not exactly HD, but that's pretty acceptable. I think this machine's basically a goer. It's going to need a few little adjustments and things. So I think I might put the covers back on and I'll give it a bit of a run, play a few tapes through it, just make sure there's no intermittent issues. And if all's good, we'll talk about getting the mechanical parts